Hey everyone, Matt here with Yuba Woodworking. I got my partner Ethan over here. And I have just finished making
the Mountain Dew pen.
The Mountain Dew pen. If you'd like the final instructions on how to make this pen or how this pen can become yours, please stay tuned to the video and we'll go over the last steps, and I'll also have information in the end on how you can make this pen yours. Thanks for watching. Now that the holes have been reamed through, the next step is to get the pen blanks onto the mandrel. So we start with our bushings. I like to make sure that the part that's been reamed out the most, this walnut side here, is on the inside. I don't like working too close to the ends. I feel like there's more... It's easier to manipulate this part of it when the reamed out part is on the inside. You get that on there. We lock it into place. Once it's locked, we can turn the safety on the lathe off. Get that little saber on there. Lock this tailstock in place. And we are ready to turn. The one thing that I would like to point out at this point is if you do try this project on your own, you can see how the wood is definitely not even. You do want to use the lowest speed setting on your lathe while you're doing this. Otherwise, you are increasing the risk of a blowout, which is when the wood splits. And usually a blowout is irreparable. You are done, you have to start all over again. So start slow, work your way up. All right, I'm going to start turning. You can see that the wood has caught a couple times. That is why we want to go on a slow setting. If it's on a high speed, the chances of the wood cracking are much, much higher. One of the concerns that people have about turning the pen is what happens when you turn the metal part. Does the chisel cut through it? Actually, the metal part is really, really malleable. The chisel cuts through it very nicely. The bigger issue is that there are differences in density of the wood. The walnut is not as hard as the Asagi orange, so I have to be a lot more gentle with the Asagi orange than I do with the walnut, just because the chisel is going to work through them at a different pace. So that's one thing to be aware of if you're trying this on your own. When you get down to this portion of the pen, what the pen looks like is really up to you. That's one of the cool things about pen making is, sure, there's a lot of things that people say you can do, you should do, but really, this is your piece of art. You can make it look however you want. So I know that this is going to be my nib side of the pen. So this will be where the clip goes, and I like to have the nib to be a lot heavier. I think it feels more natural writing. So you can kind of see that I've tapered it so the Asagi orange near the metal band here is a lot thicker than it is up where the clip will go. And I'm going to keep that principle throughout the pen so that it will be heavier up at this part than it will be down here. That, for me, is what I look for when I'm using a pen. But really, you can make this look however you want it to look. That's one of the cool things about pen making. Alright, now that we're going to be sanding, again, if you do have a multi-speed lathe, you want to be on the lowest setting possible to avoid any sort of mishap with your sandpaper. I'm going to start with the finest, or the roughest that I have. This is 120. And I'm going to slowly work my way up. And usually what I found with the Acai orange is you don't need to go much past 2,000 to get it really, really smooth. The walnut, I'll probably need to go up to at least 2,000, though, to get it to look the way that I want it to look before we put the finish on. One trick that I recently learned, you might notice that in between sandings, some of the grit from the sandpaper is actually leaving some dirty marks on the wood. One trick that I've learned recently is we can actually use isopropyl alcohol, and that usually clears it right up. So I had this old, actually I think this is an old diaper, old cloth diaper. I pour some isopropyl on it, turn the lathe on, I clean the wood. Kind of stinks. You definitely want to have some safety gear on your eyes. And you can also get a kind of a hint of what the pen's going to look like once you finish it. See how that color really pops and the metal stands out? It's starting to look pretty exciting. The downside of using the isopropyl is now we need to wait before we go to the next step on sanding. Alright, we have it all sanded. We have it all cleaned off. The next step, at least for now, the final step on the lathe is to put the finish. So I have some coconut oil here. And the cool thing about coconut oil is that it is a solid at 76 degrees. Obviously our bodies are warmer than 76 degrees, so it starts to melt when you touch it. When there's some friction with the lathe, it melts. It soaks right into the wood. It brings out a really nice shine in the wood. And it also acts as a preservative to the wood too. So what ends up happening is it brings out the color and it makes sure that the wood is not going to rot on you. Because who wants to have a pen that falls apart on them after a few years? And it really looks a lot nicer than it did with the alcohol on it, didn't it? All right, I like to buff it for a moment or two, just to make sure that wood is really soaked in. It can also sometimes smooth out the wood. I mean, at this point, we want our wood to be pretty nice to the touch already. But if there are a few parts, especially where your hand's going to be touching down here, where you'll be using the pen, we want it to be as smooth as possible. Okay, we're now at the final step. That would be assembly. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take our transmission and we want to make sure that it is working properly. You can see the little threaded part in there. That's where the pen ink will attach to it. We want to make sure that if we twist it, that goes up and down, and it does. So it looks like our transmission's working fine. Now we want to start assembling the pen. So we'll get the press in position. Next, we will do the cap. Looking good. Let's get the transmission in there. Check the ink. This is black ink. I do have blue ink available too. All right, we need to go a little bit further in. Always remember to use your little guide marks there. That will make sure that you don't make any mistakes. Let's test this one more time. Remember, you don't want to put your ink too deep in because then it won't work right when it won't close right. All right, looks like this is perfect. Now let's put some of the decorations on the pen. I like to mix and match these sometimes, but with this one, I'll just go with the standard, the way that the pen kit designer made it. And finally, we put it all together. Here you have it, the Mountain Dew pen. It is done. It is beautiful. It is much, much nicer than I expected it to look. And so if you do want this pen, it is available. I will be giving this pen away. Just make sure that you follow me on Instagram, like the photo of this pen, share it with a friend, and you are entered automatically. I'll contact you if you win. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Take care.